Ione, welcome to Women's Circle.
Thank you for having me on. Such a pleasure to be here. I'm so excited.
I think it's a pleasure to have you. Um, yeah, I guess for our audience, we connected at a pranic healing training, and yeah, I just felt like even in the introductions, we just had kind of similar storylines, and I just felt really inspired by the path that you've taken and the bravery that goes alongside it. That maybe emerges when we feel like we have no other option but to be brave, you know? So I guess, yeah, I want to chat to you today about your journey, maybe where you've started, and we'll go from there. How does that sound?
Yeah, that sounds great. It's like where to start.
Where do you start? Yeah.
Um, so I feel like my journey really began the moment that my daughter entered me.
Mm,
Um, Definitely our children, I think, are our biggest initiators. And she definitely has been for me in so many ways. Um, so that was really the beginning of my path, which started pretty dark. Um, when I did fall pregnant with her, it was like this instantaneous um, kind of like, I guess, snap back into where I was prior to meeting that partner.
right.
Which was, yeah, very much in a state of numbness, but I wasn't aware of it.
Yes.
So the awareness wasn't really there. So then when I met my partner at the time, who's now my ex, um, yeah, I met him and my light just came back and my joy came back, and it was kind of like I forgot that I was sad.
Wow.
um, so it was like this false happiness,
Yeah.
and I was really drawing that from him.
Yeah. Interesting. Mm-hmm.
And on the inside, I was deeply depressed and in such a state of numbness, and I was just so disconnected. So as soon as my daughter entered me, it was like that all came flooding back in that moment, and I would just sit on the couch for hours and hours and just stare off into space, and it was like I would just disappear.
Wow. Did you have any, like, I mean, now we understand this to be, a spiritual awakening, essentially a dark.
Oh, definitely.
But are you from a spiritual background? Like, was this language you knew?
Uh, I definitely, like, I was very much raised around spirituality. Like my grandmother did yoga nidra every single day, like so dedicated.
Yeah.
And then my mom would take me to like really massive meditation circles. I have memories from like 10 sitting there being like, still doing this, like really, like, like really, mom. And having like healings, like one-on-one healings at the age of 10. So it's definitely, the seeds were planted quite young, but the awareness wasn't there.
Yes. Okay.
The,
Would you say that your mum was aware?
mm, yeah, yes and no. I think the consciousness was there to an extent, but I really feel like, I think it's almost like, our awakenings are layered, right? So I think right now she's going through another awakening. I think she already had awoken after having me and my sisters.
Mm-hmm.
So I think at that point in time, maybe not completely.
There's something about motherhood, though, isn't it? Like, it's a real entry point.
Oh, it is.
She had somewhat of an awakening at that time, and enough consciousness to kind of know that meditation and healing should be part of your vocabulary, and ordinary, rather than this extraordinary, type of work that's only available to a few people.
Oh, definitely. It definitely, I think we all need it, whether you're a mother, a father, like the teacher at the school up the road, like the librarian, whatever. Like, we all need mindfulness in our life, whatever form that takes for you. I think that's like the basics, the basics of happiness, of living a life where you're actually fulfilled, where you're not depleted and giving from a space of depletion, you know, and essentially you're just going to burn out at some point and have some meltdown that will probably lead to an awakening, but there are other ways that are more gentle to awaken.
That's where we want to get to. We want to get to
Yes.
the gentler ways. Please.
Yes, please.
Okay. So you were raised spiritually aware to a degree. When did your, this depression or this emptiness kind of set in before you met your partner?
I would probably say so. So prior to him, I was dating a very saucy Brazilian man. And we had a pretty hot sex life. And that was great up until the point when he raped me.
Oh gosh.
Yeah.
Wow.
And that very much was what triggered that.
Yeah.
And to make it worse, I stayed with him too. So
because for a myriad of reasons, but because it's so hard when you're in a relationship to name something. It's a violation to yourself, right?
Oh, completely. And especially, I think, like, I don't think it's ever right, but when it's done in a way that that person actually consciously is aware of what they're doing, and there's that conscious awareness, I think is like that added layer of making it even worse.
Yeah, 100%. So before that, I'm guessing you felt pretty balanced as a human.
Yeah, I've been definitely like someone who's been like the ray of sunshine, like the rock, the person who's like go 24/7. Like, I see it now, it's like, oh, okay, maybe I was a bit like hyperactive, but in that point in time, like, I was high on life. I was constantly doing something, the social butterfly, like, you know, doing Latin dancing all the time, you know, inspired to delve into entrepreneurship and like study to become a PT.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. And then, yeah, that experience happened and my whole life stopped.
Yeah. That lightness, that innocence.
Oh, yeah, completely gone.
So how did you, like, because you said you kind of, went into this depression from it. And then did you realize and start doing some, like, did you start looking at the inner then, or was it still quite an external?
It was definitely very external. I think for me seems to be a pattern and a cycle of I'll experience something traumatic and I'll just leave my body. So I think in that instance, for me, it was a completely unconscious process. So even though, like, after the fact, he's like, haha, I raped you.
Oh my God.
Yeah, it was pretty messed up. Even then, it still couldn't land for me, like, oh no, that didn't just happen. And I just left, and I, again, would just sit on the couch for hours, and I wasn't able to process what had happened. I didn't talk to anyone about it.
What would you say to yourself now if you were, as you are, talking to that version of you?
It's not your fault.
100%.
It's not, yeah, it definitely wasn't my fault. And that, yeah, it's okay to feel pain. It's safe to feel pain, and what he did wasn't right, and I didn't deserve that. And just because he was my partner doesn't entitle him to my body.
Yeah. And I think that's a really important lesson, and one that I would love our mothers to hear, because there's something about giving your body over to a baby for 9 months, and then afterwards, if you're in a relationship, your partner then thinking that it's fine for them to, want to need everything from you again, as if nothing has happened.
Right? It's like you've done the biggest transformation of your life.
And I hear from women so often, like, I'm just not interested. Does that make me a bad person? Like, it makes me insecure about, where we stand. And I think, no, like, your relationship has to be stronger than that urge. It's a super important part of the relationship, but also your body is super sacred.
Oh, every single person's body is sacred, and it's okay to say no. And it's okay not to desire someone, and to actually like feel safe in speaking, like, right now I don't feel any desire, I still love you, but that's just where I'm at, and to actually honor each other's boundaries. Seek our boundaries, and for that to be a safe thing.
There's so much in that, especially the safety around speaking with boundaries. And when we come from a conditioning where, traditionally women are taught to bend and change to please others, that's a really big ask.
Oh, it's terrifying.
If I own my boundary and I speak it, will you still respect me? Will you
still be there?
Yeah, will you still be there? That's huge. But this is the voice that we need to release.
Oh, and we do so much. And if we're not speaking our boundaries, really, in essence, we're abandoning ourselves. We're dishonoring ourselves. And not only are we crossing our own boundaries, but we're allowing others to cross ours. So you're basically telling the universe, like, hey, I have no boundaries, let's just cross them. And then you wonder why you're unhappy in your relationship and your partner doesn't respect you. Because you're not actually respecting yourself.
And that's it, right? Like, all of this is about starting from a really centered place of self. And self-respect. And would you say that that's something that you built, or you always had, and you felt like it was in that moment disrespected?
I feel like it's a journey. I don't think in society that we're taught about boundaries. I think we're taught to not have boundaries, or about respect either. I think it's something that's taken time. I remember the first time along my path, a sister asked me about my boundaries, and I was like, oh, what are my boundaries? I don't think I have any. I don't know.
I've so been there. I completely understand. And you don't know your boundaries until somebody else takes them from you. And then you go, hang on, that doesn't feel right for me.
Yes. So much gold in that.
Yeah, I've been there too. So we were at, like, the point where we left off was that this new partner came into your world, and you felt like externally felt validated, you felt warm, you felt joy again. And who doesn't want that, right? Like, that's all we want. And then you got pregnant and the feelings returned. And where were you at that point with your awareness?
I would say I was still pretty deeply unconscious at that point in time, and really was quite caught in that experience, and wasn't really able to see outside of that for like a decent amount of time. Definitely started to incorporate more aspects of mindfulness into my life, especially because I wanted to birth naturally.
Yes.
So I feel like that definitely supported me. The practices around hypnobirthing and doing the meditations and, doing yoga, acupuncture supported me to get to a better place.
Yeah.
But still on a mental level, I feel like it was so deeply seated, the trauma. It needed that little bit more, to get me out of it.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So were you able to communicate this to anyone at this time?
Not really. I felt quite alone and isolated in that. I did communicate to my partner at the time the trauma that had come up, because it was like a remembrance, and I was like, oh my God, like that happened.
Mm-hmm.
So I told my partner, and I guess for him and his consciousness and where he was at the time, it wasn't something he could hold me in.
Yeah.
So instead of him being comforting, he was like angry. And it was like this misdirected anger at the guy, but at me. And he just didn't want to hear how I felt.
Yeah. So it was triggering for him.
Oh, very much so.
Yeah.
Very, very much so.
What would you just on that, because again, this is can be really important and helpful for other people. When you were like, I didn't feel like I could speak about it, what would you have needed in that time to feel safe enough to reach out?
I think the biggest thing for me is to feel like people care how you feel, because that was the thing that was being reflected to me the most, was I don't care about your feelings.
Yes.
And if someone had come to me and been like, hey, Ionie, I've noticed that, you've been really withdrawn and you seem quite depressed. Like, I just want to, like, check in on you and see, is everything okay? Like, what's coming up for you right now? Like, I'm here if you need me. And actually, like, people going out of their way, because when you're in such a state of numbness, it's almost impossible to reach out. It's like a state of paralysis where you're paralyzed, and essentially, like, it's a state of entrapment. You're essentially trapped in your body, and you can't really get out, and you're off somewhere, God knows where. And if someone really came and, like, almost like held my hand and was like, hey, we can do this together, that would have been so amazing.
Yeah. Yeah. I 100% feel that.
Yeah. And my little sister later on was definitely that person for me.
Oh, that's great. Yeah. Okay, so you sat through this pregnancy and did all the things, externally to support a healthy birth.
Mm-hmm.
But there was still some real deep stuff that was going on within.
Very, very, very much so. Yeah, it was definitely the after. So, like, once I actually gave birth to my daughter, I think just getting to a point where I realized I'm so deeply unhappy, and my attitude towards life had kind of become, if this is my life, then fuck life.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I can't do it anymore.
I've been there too.
It's so brutal.
And it is truly, and look, I don't know if, I'm sure some of the listeners will understand, but a lot won't, because until or if you go through this, and it is literally a dark night of the soul, though it can last much longer than a night, and it usually does. You feel so bleak, and you just feel so trapped within your body and your mind, and it's connected with fear, and so it makes so much sense. And I love that we're talking about this, and I love that you've been through it, because it's sort of like, I feel deeply this mission to help guide women through these openings, because they are beautiful, but yes, we have to sit in this darkness for a little bit.
Well, and that's the power of community, right? Like,
Yeah.
this type of work of us supporting each other and coming together as women, as sisters, and actually, like, taking each other by the hand and supporting us through it, that work is essential.
Yeah.
We don't need to do this alone.
No. And I think a big part of that is we don't have to have the answers.
No.
There is no answers to a lot of these things. Some of them are just mysterious. But to hold space, regularly when women are going through it, and we cycle through these things, and to just allow conversation to happen, that's all you need.
Completely. You don't need someone to tell you, hey, like, you have a beautiful baby, you should be grateful. It's like, right now I feel anything but grateful.
Yeah.
Don't tell me how to feel. Like, we need to hear each other.
Yes.
It's okay to not be okay.
Yeah. And you should feel this, you should do this, you should be that. What does that even mean? Where does that even come from? Like, it's crazy. That's what's crazy, not us, and this is what I want to get across, that there is not one woman that's broken, broken in the sense of like, you're not well enough to be here. It's like there is things and there is outside pressure and there's things you might need to look at yourself, but you're not broken. Like, this is the opening to exponential joy and freedom.
Very much so, very, very much so. And I think that's the beauty of, having these deep, dark journeys into ourselves and into our darkness and our pain and our trauma, and our beautiful children initiating us into that, is that we're being gifted this opportunity not only to show up for ourselves and to heal ourselves, but to show up for our children.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you're in a state of numbness, postnatal depression, it's so hard to be a parent and to be present and to really give your child your fullest. Obviously, you're doing your best, but your capacity is limited, when you're in that state of mind.
Absolutely. So after you had your baby, did things lift, or was it a process?
I would say initially, yes. And then that kind of came back, and my relationship was quite rocky with my partner. And we just ended up being in quite a toxic place. But yeah, definitely so grateful for my little sister to like encourage me, because I was just having such a hard time leaving the house, and really suffering from like social anxiety and PTSD every time I was breastfeeding, like having a trauma response from breastfeeding.
Yes.
And she would just be like, hey, like this is going to be on, like you should come, and like really like pretty much like force me out of the house.
Yeah. Safely though, like she obviously was a safe space for you.
Very much so.
Okay. And that's so relatable. Again, we think I shouldn't do this, I should stay at home with the baby, some of us. And some of us are like, I want to get out, but I literally can't. Like, I can't. I feel trapped.
Yeah. And it's isolating.
Yeah. So did you feel connection to your baby?
It's very hard to say. I think more hard to say because it just makes me feel emotional, to say that probably for a decent amount of time on an unconscious level, it came into my conscious awareness a lot later, is actually unconsciously was holding a lot of resentment towards my child. And although I did love her, I think part of me blamed her for how I was. And it was like, well, life was good before I had you,
Yeah. Thank you for being honest.
I felt that.
Because so many women feel that.
Yeah, they do. And it's a hard thing to say out loud, like to actually say those words.
Yeah. But I'm mourning my life before you.
Yes.
and grief is a real part of birth.
Very much so, because life is essentially like who you were before. It's really going through a death. You're being, not only are you birthing your child, but you're birthing yourself.
Mm-hmm.
You're being birthed into a parent. Like, there's just no comparison to like life before having a child.
Absolutely. And I like my ex-husband and I will say that we were children who had a child. Like, yes, we were 30, but we had no conscious awareness of what we were getting into. Because we had not learnt to adult ourselves.
Right.
See that thrive in parenthood, learnt to adult themselves young.
Yeah.
Whatever reason, it could have been, separation from parents, or, moving out of home, traveling on their own. Like, if there's ever been moments where people have had to really grow up and rely on themselves, yeah, they find parenting hard, but I think they thrive a bit quicker.
Yeah, definitely. It's like you see these mums really happy pushing prams. It's like, what's she on? Like,
yeah,
what's going on there? I need to figure that out.
They were conscious, before they conceived.
Yes.
And I think there's really something in that. Like, until you learn to adult yourself, it's going to continue to be the most overwhelming, and you're caught up in it, right? Because you're operating from this real childish, and I mean this with love, because I was this hugely. I'm still learning, but like, you operate from your child instincts. So if your child is triggered, you're triggered, right? And it becomes this like, you can't disconnect and give them space, because they're triggering you and your response.
Completely.
Right? And so it becomes this like enmeshed, entangled kind of like dance. And until you can feel really self-sufficient in who you are and self-reliant, you continue those patterns.
Very much so. And so much medicine in doing that work before you have a kid.
Yeah. So a lot of us have stuffed that up, but there's still
right, yeah, me included. There's still hope, guys. There's still hope.
Well, yeah, and look at us. We learned to reparent ourselves.
Completely. Honestly, my daughter is the best thing that ever happened to me. Like, I feel like she fast-tracked my journey so much.
100%. Like, and like, whatever we believe, I mean, I know you and I kind of probably believe the same thing, that our child chose us. They chose the exact parents, knowing what would happen to the parents.
Definitely.
And so they're our perfect teacher. And, I don't mean that in a light sense. Like, I know people say, oh, my child's my best teacher, like, and laugh it off. I'm like, my God. Every time I'm trying to be present, and I know that, and I've just had this realization recently, like, I'm in my head, while I'm playing with him or doing stuff or reading about being enlightened. And I'm like, man, this is your enlightenment lesson right here.
Yes.
Like, it's here. Stop trying to find it outside of this experience.
Mm-hmm.
You are not more than this. You are not more evolved than this. You are not any kind of mystical above this experience right here. Like, sort that shit out first.
Right? Well, and that in itself, like, actually being present with our kids.
It's hard. And
yeah,
man, I'm like 100% not perfect. And I don't have my child all the time. Like, mine's a 50-50 arrangement. So yeah, I get a break. I understand that's a space that some people can't be in. I'm really grateful for that. But yeah, it's a real difficult thing to be present with your child.
Definitely, for sure. I feel that, and I only have my daughter like 2 days a week.
Yeah, but this is our journey, right? And this is the way. I'm sure when you sat down and subconsciously planned out your life, you didn't think it would be what it is.
No, not at all. Definitely not. It's like, wow, what was life before this?
huge dose of forgiveness, isn't it? Like,
very much so.
Things aren't as we thought they would be.
No, and I don't think that anything can prepare you to be a parent, because whatever comes up for you in that space is unique to you and your child, and your triggers, your trauma, your conditioning, and then, like, you know, if we want to get deeper than that, like generational stuff, things in your DNA, like
yeah,
it's so layered.
I just learned today, and you probably already know in your work, we'll get onto this. I feel like this is a deep conversation, but that we've got a personality, and then we've got an energy system that's completely different to the personality. Mm-hmm. So what we play out can feel so different to our energy when we're, you know, and that part of our work, and maybe this is getting too esoteric, but this is where I am right now, is learning what your energy system feels like.
Yes, that's a goal, because it's almost like the integration of the two, right? Yeah. So you might be doing the work, you know, you're doing the work, you're solidly doing it, you're meditating, you're getting healings, you're going on ayahuasca journeys. But then if we're not integrating that and our belief systems and everything, it's like almost like a mismatch, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And you know this when you meet people and you're like, personality wise, I'm feeling it. Energetically wise, there's something that I can't touch, but it doesn't feel right. Mm-hmm. And that's where it's really important to get to know our energetic. I feel like I'm going off on a massive tangent. My and I get to be like, Carlie, get back to the birthing.
Like, we were over here and now we ended up over there. I don't know how we got there, but we're there.
Well, you know, you don't have to keep listening, but if you want to, you'll pick up and take what you need, right? Mm-hmm. So let's get back to the point. No, this is all meant to be. So you've got your baby and you're still journeying and like learning about yourself. When, like, I feel like it had to implode to then open.
Oh,
so how did that go down?
Okay, all right. I can get straight to the juice, or I can get to the little mini interims in between, or where do we want to go?
I don't know. Like, I mean, I guess it all leads to one. So, you know, a traditional story would say start right in the action, right in the middle.
Okay. So for me, plant medicine changed my life. Mm-hmm. I have never really been someone who would say that I'm an advocate for psychedelics or plant medicine. That's always been something I've been, you know, if you could say I was closed-minded about it, it was like a solid no. Like, I do not do that. Mm-mm.
Yeah.
Give me a glass of wine, I'm happy. Try and pass me a joint, I'll be like, no, I will choke on that, no.
Yeah, okay.
But yeah, basically my beautiful little sister invited me to this meditation circle, and like, being someone who loves participating in meditation, I was like, yeah, I'm down. And it was something I hadn't tried before. It was a meditation circle, and they basically incorporated hypnotherapy and plant medicine. So it was rape, which is a plant medicine from the Amazon. So it's actually legal in Australia. So there's like, you can go to a shop and buy it. So basically it's a tobacco, so pure tobacco that's powder, and it's inserted in the nose. Mm-hmm. Kind of feels like wasabi in between your eyeballs. And yeah, so I had this experience, and I just remember so clearly being in this dance studio. It was one of her first ones she'd ever held. And I knew her from Latin dancing. It's a small scene. And I came, and there were maybe like 4 people there. So it was really intimate. And we're next to a highway. It's really loud, and, you know, trying to like stay present. And as soon as I had the rape, it was almost like someone sat on me, and it was like I just snapped back into presence, and her voice heightened and the sound of the road just completely fell away, and I was in such a deep entranced state, and I had such a huge purge from that experience. And after the ceremony, I just cried hysterically for like maybe 20 minutes to half an hour. And she just held me, this beautiful woman just held me. And for the first time in all of those months, I actually was heard, and I was held, and I heard what I needed to hear, like, you're so loved, how you feel matters, you know, I love you, it's okay, like it's okay to not be okay. And she just held such loving presence and was just there for me every step of the way. And then it was like, if you think of like dominoes, after that it was like I just had such clarity, and I just knew that I was aligning to my path. So I broke up with my partner. I left my entire friendship circle, and you're talking like people I'd been friends with for like 15 years. Um, and I just knew so strongly within myself that although it was painful, like the most painful thing ever, like I loved these women so much, and I did love my partner, even though our relationship became quite toxic. I still loved him. But I just knew that I had to let go. And it was almost like if you think of women's intuition, right? Just this knowing, like you just know. And I just knew it was simple as that. So there was no question. And I just let go, and I just went on this wild, rapid journey of ascension, and really was taken by this beautiful shaman, and she really took me under her wing. And I was doing her rape ceremonies like every single week for like 6 months. And she really just, yeah, I don't know, she just saw me. She saw me in a way that other people didn't see me. And
she accepted you.
Exactly. She accepted me.
You are.
And it was just so beautiful to be received and just feel safe. And it was just me and her, you know, me, her, my daughter, for at least like 6 months, if not longer, and very much like a lone wolf. And that was okay. And because we were doing hypnosis with rape, it's like, man, way to cut through the bullshit, like just go straight in. Because rape in itself is a medicine that is very cleansing. So on a physical, energetic, mental level, it clears you out. So I was just in such a process of letting go, like just thinking of like a snake shedding its skin. I was leaving the old version of myself behind and making way for the new version of myself. And rewriting my belief systems through hypnotherapy and through the plant medicine, and coming to a place where I was actually feeling joy again, you know, and, you know, then eventually being invited to come and support her at events, and then journeying with other medicines like San Pedro, which is a cactus also from the Amazon. And yeah, I'm so grateful to say that that completely changed my life. And I don't know who that person was before. It feels like so many lifetimes.
Yeah. Sounds like a lot of healing took place at a really rapid time.
Oh, yeah. Well, because if I think my daughter's 4 now.
Wow.
I left my partner just before her first birthday, and left that friendship circle just before her first birthday. So I'm thinking she would have been maybe about 2 when I started to, like, you know, hold space in other ceremonies and start holding my own events and stuff and doing like one-on-one healings. So it was very much like let go of everything, did some intense self work and really expanded my consciousness to a point where I realized, wow, like if I think of where I was, I want to support other people to get there. You know, I want to show other people there is light at the end of the tunnel, that, you know, you may feel like you're in the depths of your shit and you can't see any way out and there's no light, but there is. And sometimes it just takes someone being like, here, like, let me help you.
Yeah.
You don't need to do this alone. Like, I'm here for you to get you out of it until you get to a point. And in essence, that's what that woman was for me. Until you get to a point where you're strong enough to do it by yourself.
Yeah. And I'm going to premise this with fear, because I think, you know, when I think about these beautiful women, there's a fear that if you fully let go, that you'll end up alone. That's essentially the bigness of this, you know. And so I'd love you to talk a little bit about how it might feel like that, but that's actually an illusion.
Oh, this is a yummy, juicy topic.
We'll just see how this, you know, fits into people's consciousness. But I certainly am at that point where my greatest fear is aloneness.
And it is terrifying. And if you think of like a nice little analogy is that this thing that we're holding on to so tightly, and, you know, we think it's our life raft, essentially, but it's the very thing that's actually drowning you. It's the very thing that is keeping you from moving forward and is withholding you from being happy. But we hold on to it because we don't know what life is on the other side of that. Yeah. We don't know how we're going to feel on the other side of that. Will that person still be there? Well, I don't know. And that in itself is terrifying, and that's okay. I feel that fear is such a natural part of our journey and a part of the human consciousness, essentially, is that when you're right on the brink of like something really yummy, that point in evolution where you're about to like jump over that little hedge, but the fear is like, oh no, don't do it. You know, maybe the grass isn't greener on the other side when it actually is. And really, you're saying no to your truth, to your path, to your destiny. Like this thing is limiting you.
Yeah.
And I know it may seem that you need it, but you don't. If there's anything that I've learned on my journey, is that letting go is an essential part of the journey. In order for you to receive what you desire, you need to let go. Because you're not going to get what you want if you don't.
Yeah.
You're not going to have the, you know, happy family, the joy, the laughter, the love, if you keep holding on to the unhappiness, you know. And it's this cycle of entrapment. We're desiring joy, we're desiring happiness, we're desiring fulfillment, but we're clutching on for dear life to these things that are keeping us unhappy. And it's just this like perpetual endless cycle. So it's a thing of like consciously choosing to do something differently, because what you're doing right now, it isn't working. And that for me was the biggest pivotal point, like one of the many, was being like, oh, wow, you are so deeply depressed right now. And you're so focused on your unhappiness and being like, my life's shit, and just kind of wallowing in it, instead of being like, oh, okay, my life's shit. What am I going to do about it? Okay, this isn't working. I'm going to do something different. What brings me joy? What fulfills me? What fills my cup? Am I putting my child first? Yes. Stop it.
Mm-hmm.
We need to put ourselves first, because how can we really give from a place of wholeness and be fulfilled if we're depleted all the time, you know? Like, and I think that's all part of the process of letting go, is saying no to things,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and, you know, maybe stepping away from connections that are draining you, that aren't honoring of you. And through doing that, my life is transformed astronomically and has created space for me to receive beautiful friendships and relationships and, you know, entrepreneurial success that is in alignment, because I actually have the capacity to receive it. So it's like this energetic holding, right? We're full to the brim with all this stuff that limits our capacity, and we're not actually having the space to receive because we're full, you know? And essentially that's just going to keep you stuck where you are.
Yeah, and there's something about you know, the mother playing this martyr role, like, oh no, well, like, it's easy for you to say because you've got all this time to do things and I don't have time. And it's like, yeah, but like, if you're in a partnership, ask the partner to step up.
Exactly.
Like, it's you know, it's one thing to have space and time to do this, but it's another to have a partner where you can say, hey, I really need you to step up right now because I need to fill my cup.
Definitely, for sure. And even for the women that maybe don't have a partner, because for me, obviously, like, I separated my partner. I was a full-time mom when this happened, in this whole crazy rapid ascension stuff. Like, I was doing it alone, essentially. Like, my ex would maybe spend an hour a week with my daughter, wouldn't have her overnight at all. So it's like, there's a million excuses under the sun why we can't do something for ourselves. There's friends, there's family, there's babysitters. If worse comes to worse, take your child with you. I've taken my daughter to that many meditation circles and events and things, like,
because it's like, how much do you want it?
Yeah.
Because we need to also remember that not all of us want to heal.
No, and that's okay.
And that's, but I thought a really good practical exercise, and one that I was working with this morning, which comes from Caroline Meese. She's amazing. I'll put a link in the bio, is listening to the voice that's your saboteur, that's sabotaging you, right? Yes. And call it for what it is. You're my saboteur. I actually wrote on my page, hello, saboteur. What do you have to say to me today? And, you know, it was a page of stuff that's always in my head. Always. I would never want to say it out loud because I'm ashamed that this strong, independent woman who has her own business and like looks after all these other people has these thoughts in her head on the daily. But there we go. So I wrote the big page, and then you also then go and make a note of when your saboteur is most active.
Oh, I like that.
Because it's not all the time. Is it at night? Is it in the morning? Is it when you go to make a decision for yourself? Is it when your health is not great? When is this voice talking to you? And then the final part of this is that you invite saboteur in, and in its face, you choose a different path.
I love it.
Which is what you said. You were saying, you were saying that you choose a different path, but it's like you actually need to call out the thought forms.
Oh, definitely. Well, and that's another layer of like even more potent and like another level of consciousness of like really doing that exceptionally consciously.
Oh, and it's like it's shameful. Like the things that I'm thinking, it's ridiculous. Do you know what I mean?
Well, but it's so convincing as well. Like that's the voice of fear, is it's so convincing that it sounds like the truth, but it's not.
No, my God, because the truth is light. Like, I mean, obviously it might serve some really difficult, hard lessons, but if it's true and it's right, there's always a space that you're not consumed.
Mm-hmm.
Do you like? I really feel that.
Definitely.
There's always a tiny little speck in your emotion, in whatever you're going through, that's light, and that's how you know it's good truth.
Very much so. Very much so. And I think it's such an important practice to actually like stop and check in with ourselves.
Yeah.
And be like, hey, where is this coming from? It's so easy to be in these unconscious cycles that feed into each other and, essentially put us in this position of self-sabotaging instead of actually like doing a practice like that and being like, oh, okay, I just observed that thought form happening. Okay, I'm going to go and sit down and do that and actually like give it space and presence.
Yeah. And look, if you've got the baby with you, go type on your phone, like have a pen and paper around. I have notebooks all around my house. I'm like, are you the same? I'm like, and because journaling is a practice that I would love to, help women with, because a lot of them think it's worthless, or it's, I've got nothing to say. But it's like, yeah, that voice that goes on inside your head is unique to you.
Mm-hmm.
No one else is thinking exactly the same as you, and it's those unique things that you need to get out
completely
and have a look at and kind of bring to consciousness. And this is how we change, isn't it? Like, this is the big thing. Everyone's like, oh yeah, I want to change, but it's like all you need to do is become aware.
Yes, well, and that's where it starts. Awareness is everything.
Yeah, because you can't change what you're not aware of.
Exactly.
And emotions are a great place. It's like if you get really angry and you have a tiny bit of space to stand back from that anger and go, what's really going on here?
Observing.
That's awareness. That's awareness, And so it's not a big, oh my God, I need to do, this work to be enlightened. Like it's as simple as just noticing and questioning everything.
Well, and I think that's such a beautiful place to start as well. I think, like you were saying about enlightenment, I think it can seem unattainable.
Yeah, 100%.
And like you got to be some monk practicing in a monastery, sitting and meditating for hours and hours and hours. And
or it has to be spontaneous, that I just am. That's so rare. That is so rare. And even then, you don't know where they've come from.
Exactly. And if we can like incorporate those little practices in our day-to-day of like just observing ourselves and our thoughts, there's so much gold in that. Like the things you learn about yourself and what you can heal just from that alone.
Oh, yeah. And and like this, the other, it's such a simple task is those thought patterns are things we're holding on to. And as much as we're like, I don't want to hold on to this, blah, 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 it's serving some kind of purpose.
Very much so.
So that's the other question. What purpose is this serving me? And like, that's really bringing to light those things, isn't it? It's like,
definitely.
How is this serving me? I know it is, because I can't get it out of my head.
Completely.
But yeah, it is. It's just tiny little activities that can be woven in.
Oh, very much so. And I think it's those little, I think it's quite simple things. Like it doesn't have to be elaborate and like some airy, super airy fairy stuff, although I do love it.
You get there, because once you start feeling good, you want to like keep going, and you know that.
Yeah,
yeah.
And it deepens, it definitely does. But yeah, I definitely, even I think when you get further along, having those little practices is something, it's like the bread and butter, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's like the basics, your butter, you know, it's like, oh, okay, yeah. Like I love writing. I write so much. And that's something like with my clients, I get them to do journaling as well, and like delving into those questions about themselves. Like why do you desire to hold on to that? Like why does that serve you?
Yeah. So
what does life look like if you don't hold on to that? What would that mean for you?
Yeah. So what do you like? I'd love for you to tell the audience like where you've arrived in terms of working in this field. Like what do you do now?
I feel like it's changed many times. But in this moment, I basically support beautiful, beautiful souls, so men and women who are on their journey. So I support them in essentially getting to know themselves and discovering the truth of who they are, and taking them into expanded states of consciousness, and just reconnecting to their body. So I do that through meditation. I hold like quarterly retreats as well. I'm holding one the end of this year for New Year's Eve as well. And then I do like one-on-one sessions. At the moment, that's my predominant offering. So I do sound healing, I do shamanic healing, a bit of tantric massage as well. And what else? My brain is gone. But anyway, basically, I support people in coming to a place where we're not restricted. You know, I think society and social conditioning, we're so restricted within ourselves, and we're not fully embodying the truth of who we are. I basically support you in releasing the shackles and finding who you are, untamed, uncensored, and really liberated in your expression, in your being, through all those beautiful different modes of healing. And plant medicine is definitely, if you're wanting like a shortcut, that's definitely my favorite one to share is plant medicine ceremonies to really support people in rapid healing and just supporting people in going deeper. You know, I think it just kind of cuts that layer of resistance and helps you just really get into the nooks and crannies of the things.
Yeah. Well, I think this work is so needed, and you know, if it resonates for you, you'll find it. You know, it's not. And I think on my journey that's still continuing, I felt really alone in the beginning, as you did as well. And I didn't know who to reach out to, and I really wanted that, you know, that kind of a shaman, like someone that could take me on the journey and hold my hand and say, "You're not crazy. This is." This is a spiritual experience, you know. And you know, when I say spiritual, it's deep within, like it's a healing kind of journey.
So very much so.
It's beautiful that you offer these services, and I'll put them in the link. We'll link to them down the bottom, because I think you never know that who's listening that might be like, this is exactly what I need right now.
Coming home to self.
Yeah, because that's the truth of this.
Yeah, well, in essence, that is definitely like, this is about being in devotion to yourself, being in devotion to your healing, and really choosing yourself and being like, I'm ready to take action and be accountable for my life, you know. And essentially, if we just kind of like, oh, my life's happening to me, it's this state of like disempowerment. So it's about reclaiming your power and realizing we have the power to choose. This is a conscious choice.
Isn't that the hardest thing?
It is.
Coming to awareness that you have a choice. Like, I remember when I was in the depths of anxiety, thinking that it was someone needed to save me, it was everyone else, and what am I going to do? And I'm dying, I feel like I am. And just this light bulb of being like, you have a choice to outsource and get nothing back, or really heal yourself, because no one else is going to.
Yeah, no. And I think that can be the misconception with people going to healers or seeing a shaman, is it's like, oh, you're doing it for me. No. We're there. It's like someone holding your hand, and being like, you're doing this, and I'm here being the channel and supporting you through this, supporting you on your journey.
And that's it. And that's any kind of therapy. Like,
yeah, completely.
We think, oh, it's the therapist. It's 100% you. They're just holding space.
Very much so.
Basically, for you to explore some things that are quite difficult. Yeah. No, that's great. Ionie, it's been a pleasure to chat to you.
It's been such a pleasure. I've loved every minute of it. So juicy.
It's really juicy. I hope that it's not too much, but you know what? This is where we're at. So
take it or leave it.
This is the level we're playing on now.
Yeah.
And we want to bring everyone on.
Yes.
A beautiful connected community of women and men. Like, it's just, this happens to be the person that carries the baby tends to have this opening, this unique space that we kind of talk in. So yeah. Go well. Thank you for everything. And I'm so honored to connect with you.
Likewise, darling. Thank you so much for having me. And I just love how the stars aligned and brought me here.
Thank you, universe.
Thank you.
Awesome.